Hello there and welcome to the Double Digit Hockey Podcast. I am your host, John Easthope, and today I have a very special guest. A lot of you will know him from the MLB network. Some will know him from the NHL network. Some will know him from the podcast of Cinephile, and others will know him from the GM Shuffle or know him from all of them. I personally know him from back in his days at The Score. Joining me today on the show is Adnan Virk. Welcome, Adnan. How are you?
I'm doing great, John. Thanks so much for the intro. I'm so glad you said that. I work with Jackie Redmond, who, as you know, also works at NHL Networks, a fellow Canadian. She used to work at Rogers Sportsnet. I did something with her once on the air, and she also introduced me as former Score legend. I said, it's so interesting. Most people always say ESPN or something else. So I like the fact we go back to the Score together. I have fond memories of my time there. Cabby, of course, is a close friend of mine. We went to Ryerson together. We remain in good touch. We text all the time. And I just talked to Sid Sixero the other day. I'm so happy for Sid. He just got a job at Breakfast Television, as you know. I haven't talked to Sid in years. And I was texting with him. He said, hey, do you have time for a call? I said, absolutely. So I have great Score memories, whether it's Cabby or Sid or Elliot Friedman. I just interviewed the other day on NHL Network. Elliot's a great guy. We definitely had great memories at the Score.
Yeah, I love the Score growing up. I won't tell you how old I was watching the Score growing up. Don't want to age anybody here. But I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that crew. I followed that crew, all those guys in their careers. I love Elliot Friedman. Tim and Sid was a really good show. Sad is coming to an end, but very happy for Sid. Whatever Tim decides to do next, we know he's going to smash it out of the park. I'm excited for all of those guys. But I'm glad you joined me today on this show. Back on the NHL network, back while watching hockey, covering hockey. How does it feel to be back on the air with actual real hockey to talk about?
Oh, it's been great, man. Thank God, John. You know, I'm a huge NFL fan, so I was happy that I watched more football than I ever have, because normally in the past, those Thursday night football games, maybe Monday, we'd be watching hockey or basketball. But to be honest, after a while, it got a little lame because some of those games were just terrible, as you know. Mm-hmm. So I really felt that, as we know, we get hockey, obviously training camp September and the games in October, but I really felt it like in late November. I was like, God, I wish we'd be watching hockey right now. You're right around American Thanksgiving, and then especially with the holidays, no hockey on was just awful. We did get to watch the World Juniors, although it sucked that Canada lost to America, because I definitely took it on the chin down here. But it's great to have it back, man. It's funny. I was looking at the highlights today. Blues Coyotes are playing for the 7th straight time. Like, what a weird time we're in, man. Years from now, you and I are going to tell our friends, go, hey, you should have seen what happened in 2021. Oh, really? Oh, this COVID thing was the worst. They had a bubble. Then they would play each other all the time. Nobody could travel. Like, it's just so weird to me. But I got to be honest. I wouldn't want this all the time, obviously. But I kind of like this two teams playing each other all the time. Like, the Blues Coyotes playing 7 straight times is insane. But like Leafs Habs again is great. Flames Oilers again is great. Like, you definitely see the local rivalries and what that means. And it's definitely made for some good hockey. I thought the first couple of weeks of the season, I'm not sure about you, was a little bit, took a little time to get used to. Obviously, guys did not play training camps. So it was a little bit, just kind of needed the edge on the skates a little bit. But now that the guys are rolling, I've enjoyed it. And I'm doing hockey tomorrow night with Dave Reed and Stu Grimson, the Grim Reaper, classic game from the past. Of course, Reader's been on NHL Network for a long time. So I look forward to doing hockey tomorrow. I worked with Brian Lawton last week. He's a great guy as well. We did the draft together. So it's just great to be back talking hockey, John. I'm sure you're as excited as I am.
Absolutely, 100% excited. A lot of people I've talked to are sometimes complained a little bit about the schedule. And I looked at them like, for a one-off, this is better than nothing, right? Like, absolutely better than nothing. Like, the Flames are currently in a 4-game stretch against the Canucks. People are like, I'm already sick of the Canucks. We've only played 2 of the 4 games. Well, 2 more to go. Strap up. Let's go, because there's a lot of good hockey to go. I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
To that point, John, it can definitely feel monotonous and redundant, but it also kind of feels like a playoff series, right? Yeah. It's like a 6-game playoff series. You just keep playing each other over and over. I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah, the St. Louis Blues on their Twitter the other day actually was like, today's opponent for the first time in, 2 days, the Arizona Coyotes. So they're having fun with it, and I love it. I love that the game's back, and I love that the NHL is doing all that they can to keep these games going forward. A little bit of COVID getting in there, but they're doing their best to get those games back on, and I love it. Absolutely love it. You're a noted Flyers fan, so let's talk a little bit about the Flyers. They've had themselves a pretty decent opening to their season, sitting at 8-3-2. What have you made of the Flyers start so far?
Well, it's interesting. Carter Hart kind of started slow to the gates, which was interesting. I said, it's a good thing they signed Brian Elliott. And Carter Hart, as we all know, a year ago, was really odd when it came to the split. So great at home and then not so good in the road. So once we went into a bubble, I said, we're screwed. But then amazingly, the Flyers had a good run in them. It's unfortunate the Islanders were able to stifle them. But I just love the collection of young talent. When I look particularly at their defense, John, for years you look at the Flyers and go, their defense is old and slow. as you know, they once signed Darian Hatcher and Mike Rathje in the same offseason. I said, oh my God, we're just signing old guys who are physical. Like, that's not the way the game is played now. Now when I watch the Flyers defense, I go, God, Provorov's incredible. I love watching him play hockey. Gostisbehere's bounced back. I like Sam Morin. I like seeing Phil Myers. I miss Matt Niskanen, but I think that, they've been able to kind of fill in the spots because Hextall drafted so well with those good young players. So I love their defense. Offense, of course, Couturier, we really missed. The fact he is back now is a great sign. He's the best Flyer, the most important Flyer. Giroux is long in the tooth, so I don't know what you're going to get out of him at this age. But a good sign early in the year is James Van Riemsdyk has been playing well. He's obviously getting a ton of money. He was good with the Flyers, not great. He leaves Philly, is tremendous. They signed him back. He was a bust last year, but hopefully this year is a better indication of the kind of guy he is. I think Voracek still got a little bit left in the tank. And obviously, they've got those guys connecting at a breakthrough season last year. I know they're in Alberta. There was a lot of talk about Johnny Gaudreau maybe getting dealt for connecting in the offseason. I like Gaudreau, but I said, listen, I like connecting a lot. I like where we're at with this. So Philadelphia's got good balance right now on offense and defense. It's weird, though, with Hextall going to the Penguins. I mean, he was my favorite player growing up. So I was so happy when he was running Philadelphia. I was devastated when he lost his job. I recognized there was ups and downs in his tenure there. The ups are he drafted well, was very patient. The downs is may not have pushed the pedal to the metal enough when the team was like, hey, let's get going. And now with Pittsburgh, they're going to say, let's get going. So I was telling my son, I go, God, I can't imagine a worse scenario. Like, I don't know what your favorite team is. Maybe I Flames. So let's say if Mike Vernon was all of a sudden running the Oilers, you'd go, God, I hate that. Jerome McGinley was running the Oilers. Oh my God, I can't do this. So it's so weird for me as a Flyers fan. I'm cheering for Hextall, but I hope the Penguins stink. I don't think that's possible. I hope he drafts well and the team is just a bust and it's not his fault. I think that's the only way I can be happy because God forbid I ever cheer for anything involved with the Penguins. So good start for the Flyers. That division, though, John, as you know, is interesting. The Bruins played Philadelphia very well. The Capitals look loaded. Now they've lost 4 straight games. So I feel like it's Bruins, Caps, Flyers as the 3 best teams. Now that Pittsburgh has made this with Berkey and Hextall, maybe they can join them. But those feel like the top 4 teams to me. There's definitely a separation then when it comes to the Islanders, the Devils, the Rangers. They're not quite the upper echelon right now.
Which is surprising for the Islanders for me is they should be there with those guys because, as you noted in the bubble, they played Philadelphia in a really good series back in the bubble. You would think with Barry Trotz behind their bench that they would be able to stay with those big guys. What have you seen from the Islanders that hasn't put them up with those other teams?
The big thing is they just don't score enough goals, John. Like their offense is 25th right now in goals per game. Like I know scoring is down generally, except for the Scotiabank North Division. Up in Canada, we all score goals, but everywhere else the goals are down. So it's the Islanders are 25th in goals for, and they're 5th in goals against, which is an example of the defensive system they run, and obviously they're really strong defense. One of the great examples of the bubble in the playoffs every year is you get to see guys step up. Pellick and Pulak, I thought, were terrific a season ago, so I really appreciate how good their defense is. Their special teams is okay. They're 16th in power play. They're 12th in penalty kill. They just got to score more goals, and they should be better.
Yeah, that's it's interesting to see how that team works defensive, like the Barry Trotz teams do, work from the defensive way out. They're just not scoring goals. So it's interesting to see how they can get themselves, if they can, back into that race. I want to go back to the Flyers really quickly here. You ran through their defense, their young defense. There's one guy that I think is not getting enough credit for the success of the Flyers. Provorov's been excellent. Other guys have been really good for that team. But Travis Sanheim has seemed to find himself a nice quiet game and a nice quiet role. What have you made of Travis Sanheim?
That's a great call, John. I get it. Even as you said, I'm a noted fan. I didn't even mention him, thinking about all those other players. I think he's an underrated player in a lot of ways. As you said, he's just smooth and steady. If you look at his plus minus, you look at his scoring, he's not a guy who's particularly flashy, but I think he's steady. He's one of those guys that kind of fits in well. I love the way he moves the puck. I can definitely see him getting some more power play time. I mean, he's a guy from Manitoba. He kind of fits in with Robert Haig as well, I think, really well, because they've kind of got a similar game. So, listen, he was a first-round pick back in 2014, so they obviously had high expectations for him. But I'm glad you mentioned Sanheim's definitely a guy who's under the radar. He's only 24 years old. He's 6'3". I think he's got a lot of good years ahead of him.
It's a little bit of a biased question there for me because I am a big Western Hockey League guy. I'm wearing the Hurricanes hat right now. I saw Travis Sanheim play with the Calgary Hitmen for his time during there, and there was something there for him. So I'm glad that you went through his game there a little bit for me there, because that's exactly what we saw in the Western Hockey League. The guy, if you don't notice him, it's in a good way because he's playing a solid two-way game and allows the other guys around him to be successful. Yeah. Speaking of being successful, you mentioned Ron Hextall. We'll put the team aside for a second here. His relationship with Brian Burke, how do you see that mixture going for the Pittsburgh Penguins?
Well, it's interesting because, again, Berkey is a win now kind of guy. We all know about his truculence and his pugnacious attitude. And
Mhm.
when I covered the Leafs for a little bit, I dealt with Berkey a little bit. I always liked him a lot. He's obviously great with the media. I wasn't surprised he was a good member of the media in hockey in Canada because he's funny and he's blunt. But he's looking to win. They're not looking to just kind of hang around here. So clearly they had an issue when it came to Jim Rutherford and Penguins ownership that, hey, let's put the pedal to the metal here. So Berkey's going to come in and go, hey, let's win now. What's interesting is Hextall with Philadelphia, the knock against him when he was too patient. So is this an example of them saying, okay, Berkey's impulsive and intense, Hextall is patient, that's a good yin and the yang? Or, hey, Hexy, we like what you did, but just be a little bit more aggressive. Okay, and Burke will get in your face to make sure you're aggressive. It's going to be one or the other. Like, just because Hextall was too patient with Philly, either that's his MO going forward, or he learned from it and said, okay, fine, I won't be too patient. They told him, we're giving you this job. We're trying to win a cup now. This is not Philadelphia. This is not rebuild. Win now. Okay, sure. Like, I think like any person, you accept the responsibility ahead of you. So I think they must have had Hextall and Burke on the same page and go, listen, guys, just to be clear, we are winning now. Do so at all costs. Okay, got it. And I think Burke, that's obviously his MO. And for Hextall, maybe it's not naturally what it comes, his first forte, but I think they're all on the same page. And they're saying, listen, Malkin's 34, Sid's 32. We're not waiting 3-4 years for this, right? We've got to get this thing winning right now. Mm-hmm. So Malkin's an interesting one, John. I don't know who said it to me. It might have been Brian Lawton. I think it was Bill Lindsay. Billy Lindsay said to me, he goes, what about Malkin getting traded? He goes, he's got a year and a half left. He's making, it's a $9.85 million cap hit. You could still get something for him. Mm-hmm. He goes, what do you think about Malkin? He goes, and by the way, to be clear, Malkin's not getting dealt like for draft picks. I think he could get dealt for like a younger player, somebody who could still impact Pittsburgh. But don't be surprised if Hextall and Burke kick the tires and go, okay, what's the market like for Malkin? Can we get an impact player and a prospect? And they might be willing to make that deal. I'm not as confident, but it's something to keep an eye on.
That's a big job ahead of those two guys in Pittsburgh. If they're looking to win now, there's not much in those covers to deal with. So it's going to be interesting to see how they come out of that on the other end. We're right up against it here, but I have to ask you one non-hockey question before we go.
Sure.
You're a big movie guy. So I wanted to get your opinion on this for a while here. I hear you with Boomer on the Fan 960 all the time talking movies. Al Pacino, for me, my favorite Al Pacino movie is Scarface. What say you?
I love Scarface. It's incredible because, it's so different from Michael Corleone in The Godfather. He's just cold and calculating, and he has this incredible transformation from a college boy who becomes a gangster. And in Godfather 2, his soul is really completely corrupted. The fact he orders the death of his brother, like, you just couldn't even make a movie like that to me. Like, wait, what's the pitch? So there's this guy, Michael Corleone, he kills his brother Fredo. What? Like, no one's going to want to go see this movie. Well, that's how they did it. And it's a remarkable performance. But why Scarface is so great is it's the flip end of that. It's Pacino just completely untethered. And the whole movie is so operatic. And the character of Tony Montana himself is so grandiose that Al is able to just rise to the occasion. The best of Pacino is when he's completely, as I said, untethered. At times, maybe he's too over the top, but at times he's just hugely entertaining. And his performance as Tony Montana is big and bold and is all the great markings of a gangster. And what he recognized, credit to Pacino, is he's got to have humor in the movie. He said, you know what, if he's not a little bit funny, the character's tough to take. Whether it's cocaine on his nose, whether it's the way he's dancing with Michelle Pfeiffer, whether it's the way he's sitting in his hot tub watching a show, he goes, you kind of fear Tony Montana, but you kind of laugh at him too, and laugh with him once in a while too. And he goes, that was a really important part of the character. And I give Al credit for that, recognizing this guy's got to be a little bit, there's going to be some humor there. I mean, that whole say goodnight to the bad guy speech is just brilliantly done because it's kind of funny and it's charming and it's threatening in its own way. So for me, I would probably go with The Godfather just because I think it's so iconic. But I've interviewed Pacino before. I met him briefly. Like I've watched every interview about the guy. He says himself, when people say, what are your best performances? He says The Godfather and he says Scarface. Those are the top two he always says. The third, he loves Serpico, which is a great performance. Yeah. Dog Day Afternoon, I think, is one of his best. If I probably had to go top four, I would say probably Michael Corleone, and Tony Montana, and then Sonny in Dog Day Afternoon, and Frank Serpico and Serpico. I think those are his top four. But listen, Pacino is Tony Montana. I mean, it's the world is yours, man. It's incredible.
What a great movie. I love that show. Love Pacino. He's good. This has been fantastic, Adnan. I appreciate your time for me on my show today. The best of luck with what's ever coming up on your podcast. Make sure you guys check out Adnan Virk's at the Cinephile and the GM Shuffle podcast. And again, like he said, he'll be on the NHL Network tomorrow. Looking forward to it, Adnan. Thank you so much today.
You're a good man, John. I like your energy. I clearly like your passion for hockey.
Thank you.
I said yes to you. By the way, this is very important out there. Anybody who wants to listen, I get these all the time, right? Hey, can you come on my podcast? The key was you said you're a fan of my appearances on 960. So I appreciate you supporting me and Boomer and the boys. Those guys are awesome. They're a great radio station.
Yes.
And all the best in your career, John. This was fun.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Adnan. I appreciate it.
All right. Good job, dude.
Thank you so much, Adnan.